Okay, welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I come from the acting background.
And I'm Josh Knapp, and I'm a broadcast engineer.
Here we go.
All right, today we're doing Old, New, Boring Blue, number 3, part 1.
Yes.
All right, so...
You were worried. You got it.
I was like, which one? So number 3, part 1.
That's it.
Yeah, epilogue 2. No. Okay, so we're going to talk about the new film of our Old, New, Boring Blue, and we watched Gone Girl.
Yes, but let's just take a split second to explain Old, New, Boring, and Blue, just for anybody who didn't catch the first two. Old movie being something 25 years or older. Mm-hmm. New being something in the theaters now, or renting, but mostly they've been in the theater.
Yeah.
Boring is something that we might not think the film was boring, but it has come back to us that, that movie's so boring, nothing happens. Why would you watch that? Mm-hmm. And then Blue is something that is a non-traditional happy ending. Not everybody lives happily ever after, doesn't have the greatest of endings, might even have
a sad ending,
a tragic ending. So that's the explanation between the four categories when we break them down like that. And then today we're going to do the new,
which is David Fincher's Gone Girl. Just as a preview, the other films that we're going to be talking about are the old is Night of the Hunter, the Charles Laughton film from 1955. The boring, in quotes, movie is one of my choices, which is Jean-Pierre Genet's Delicatessen from the mid-90s, 91, I think.
Yeah, somewhere around there, yeah.
Maybe early 90s. And then the Blue movie definitely fits into this category.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Is Julian Schnabel's Diving Bell and the Butterfly.
And I think that's 2007?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't look that one up yet.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's why we broke it up into two parts, because this is a big one, especially with Fincher. It's been often said in our podcast how much we're Fincher fans. So we've got a lot to talk about with that. And then the three other films, who would have known?
Yeah.
It's like the Heart of Darkness.
You're just delving in.
Yeah, it's like the cube of insanity of tragedy, in my opinion.
Well, and this movie isn't a cheer-upper anyway.
No.
At all, by any means.
Kind of none of them are.
No, it was, I don't know if we knew what we were doing when we were piecing together this.
What do they call a happy accident? Yeah.
I think so. But, this movie that we're talking about today, Gone Girl, is based on a Gillian Flynn novel, and she wrote the screenplay. And I don't think she's written any other screenplays. It looks like she hasn't. She did a. That's it. I mean, she's doing another one, I think a TV movie based on one of her novels, Sharp Objects. But other than that, just got announced, I guess. But other than that, this is her first screenplay. So I'll just give a quick synopsis. This is off of IMDb. Gone Girl, 2014. It's the description says, with his wife's disappearance having become the focus of an intense media circus, a man sees the spotlight turn on him when it's suspected that he may not be innocent. So, I mean, it's kind of just
I love how they do that.
Yeah, it's very quick.
If I had to describe that movie, I could never have done it like that.
You're like, well, first this is what happened.
And then this, and then this, and then Tyler Perry, and then this, and then this, and then Neil Patrick Harris. Yeah, so good for them that they can do that.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you a few real quick things. I know nothing about the backstory of this movie. I just found out it was a novel by reading other people's reviews, and I never read reviews for movies I haven't seen yet. I will read them afterwards, and I only read a few just to get some other people's opinions and stuff like that. And I just found out it was based on a novel, and people are saying that they've enjoyed the movie more than the book, which is something you don't hear too often. And I had no idea it was a woman who wrote it. No,
well, I haven't read any reviews at all, even after I watched it, because I kind of wanted to, because it seems like sometimes I will kind of let stuff seep in to kind of how I feel about a movie.
Only if I agree with it.
Well, no, but I mean, it will kind of make me like, rethink, my initial thoughts. So I wanted to at least get my thoughts down and
interesting.
then go back. Because I really love, especially with Fincher movies, I want to see everything and know everything about a Fincher movie because I know it's layered.
Right.
As opposed to like, oh, just point the camera there and like, I don't know, shoot something over there. And I don't really care what's in the background. That is not David Fincher.
Not at all.
He knows and controls everything for better or worse. Some people may say that that's bad, but I love it. So
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
you know,
not
that's me.
exactly the person I want to be, but I mean, I get that. I get why it's a big job he has. I was going to say important, but I wouldn't necessarily say important, but he has a lot of responsibilities on his back. And I've seen those DVDs and the backstories, and he does have a little bit of an edge to him. I'm not so sure I want to hang out with him, but I want to go to his movies. That's for sure.
Yeah, and kind of like we talked about when we were comparing movies to other, or I guess film, to other forms of art. I mean, you've got the painter and his brushes and his canvas, and nobody else kind of enters into that whole
Right.
scenario. Well, I think David Fincher is trying to get as close as possible to that.
Right.
I mean, he does need other people to make movies, but some part of me thinks that like in an ideal world, David Fincher would just make the movie himself.
Well, have you
know?
ever
I
seen
mean, like,
a painter or an artist see their picture being hung in a museum or for a show? They're very particular about it. So it's the same thing. Artists are very particular people. They can rub people the wrong way because I think with Fincher, he just doesn't have time for the pain. He doesn't have time to discuss or get drama. This is how it's going to be. This is how I see it. Nope, that's wrong. That's an inch off. That's this. That's that. He even does that. I think that's off just by a little bit and fix it. And, what are you going to debate him?
yeah,
Or get fired. Goodbye.
exactly.
It's Fincher.
Well, and I think that he's kind of started this. I guess we could start getting into a kind of a generic review of this without giving anything away.
Okay.
Really.
Well, I want to say something about that. I think
Yeah.
it's impossible to talk about this movie without giving away
I
spoilers.
totally agree.
So if you have not seen this movie, then
So what would you say? Yes, go see it.
yes, of course. Of
Mm-hmm.
course. I want to spend just a little bit more time loving on Fincher because we
Yeah,
do
me too.
like him. We have spoken a lot about him, but this is the first time we've officially
Reviewed a movie of
reviewed
his.
something. We've brought him up a million times already, and he's Fight Club for me. He's on my top 10 list of all time,
Mm-hmm.
and there's not one uninteresting film for me that he has done. Not one. So would I say go see it? Yes,
Mm-hmm.
but ... I mean, there's a lot of buts for me with this one. So I don't know where you want to begin. I don't know if you
I
want
would
to.
agree with you, and I think I'll add on to the but ... because this is a very adult film, not like adult films, film, but it's a
yeah.
very like
Mature.
Yes, you need to be ready for a movie with adult subjects, and you need to be okay, I guess, with expecting that to come at you because it will come at you.
Absolutely.
And so, if you're just looking for, a way to like spend a Friday night with your date, it's probably not.
I did see this thing that said this is the perfect date movie if you want to break up with the person. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So do you want to start with acting, directing? I would like to start with
Yeah.
one thing.
So I have an interesting question
Okay,
for
go
you
for
first. Why is Ben Affleck in this movie?
Okay, let me stop you for just a split second. We will get to that, but should we answer the question of why David Fincher wanted to make this movie? Do we want to go there first, or do we want to go to
Okay,
Bennett?
we can do that. I have a
Because you
cynical
said
answer to that.
You said coming out of the theater, Josh and I saw this movie together. It's the second movie that we've seen together since we've been doing this podcast because normally we don't see things
doesn't
together.
sync up
Yeah,
usually.
and just because of schedules and stuff like that. And I think that's a good thing because you have separate experiences and then you can bring them together. This one we experienced together. And I think you said on the way out, you were pondering why he wanted to make this film. Now, was that before you saw the movie or during the movie?
Well, I started noticing similarities between Dragon Tattoo and Gone Girl and differences between those two movies and his previous work.
Yep.
And so that made me think, what is it? At one point, he was supposed to direct 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea for Disney.
Right, which is crazy to me.
But it wouldn't have been like a, Mary Poppins version of
Yeah,
20,000
no, of
Leagues
course
Under the
not.
Sea. It would have been a serious
crazy
version.
good, meaning it would have been interesting.
No. And I think so too. But so what is it? Like, it's kind of like he bifurcated. He like split. at some point he said, at some point he agreed to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but then he kind of went the exact opposite direction and said like, I'm gonna make movies that either they challenge him in a certain, they've got to challenge him obviously,
Yeah.
but they challenge him in a different way than 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea or Star Wars or Star Trek or something like that, which I know that he was in at least beginning talks of Star Wars. They came to him about
And he
Star
did
Wars.
Alien 3, right?
He did Alien
Yeah.
3, but that was a for hire job, and
But he did
hates
it.
that movie.
Yeah, but
Still, it does. I mean, he does. He
Yeah,
does
I
not
know.
like that movie. But and it's because he lost control over
Right.
it. And so maybe what happened is he sat down with Disney for 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and they said, "Sure, you can do whatever you want, just as long as you do all this other stuff." And that's probably where he was just like, "I'm out."
Oh, you mean it's a deal, package
Same
deal?
thing with
yeah.
same thing with Star Wars. It was probably a similar thing where he said, "I want to do this," and they said, "Well, you can't really do exactly that." And he said, "Well, then fine. I'm not
Or
your
maybe they
guy."
wanted to sign him for 3 or 2 and 3, and he didn't want to do 2 and 3.
So the only thing that makes me think that, like, if you look at Dragon Tattoo and you look at Gone Girl, what are the similarities? They're both books.
Right?
They're both popular books.
Yeah.
They're both edgy books or
Right.
book series, I guess, as far as Dragon Tattoo is concerned. So is it how it what is pushing him towards these, like, kind of, everybody wants to have this made, and maybe that's the way he can get his money, because everybody read The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and of course they want to make a movie of it. And so he's kind of like coming in the back door and saying like, sure, I'll make the movie. And then he does it exactly the way that he wants to, and he can get away with it. Same thing with Gone Girl. Or I don't know. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. It's like, why is he, I mean, even Social Network, that was based on a book. I mean, the book was co-written with the movie, but still it's that whole based on a book type thing that he's doing, that he's pulling from. Fight Club was based on a book.
I don't think I
know.
don't think that's as to me that's not that interesting per se. I find it interesting that he made a remake with Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. That was I was like, "Oh, interesting. Why would he remake something like what was it that he saw in it that he wanted to remake?" For me, why he actually made this movie it's not that interesting to me. What he saw in the theme of the movie and what he was trying to get across is what I'm still pondering. I can't figure it out. I walked out of the theater going, I'm not sure what I just saw. I mean, I saw it, but what?
Well, so I have a theory on the
Okay.
theme of the movie, but I don't know if it gives a bunch away, or I don't know. If
I
it does or
said
not.
too bad with that. I mean, no offense to
Okay.
anybody who hasn't
Well,
heard it.
then I guess if you haven't seen it, then you need to go see it.
go listen to part 2 of Boring and Blue podcast and not this one. Yeah,
Well, anyway, so but once you see it, definitely listen to this. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that what he was going for is how marriage has the possibility to be toxic to people's lives, and I think it's informed by he's divorced. He's got a kid. He's divorced. He's not married again, but he's been with his producer girlfriend or whatever for a while.
right, and he wasn't married long.
I don't think
Only
so.
a couple years.
And it was in the mid 90s.
Yes.
When all this other stuff was going on.
Yeah.
But still, and so he obviously, since he's been with his producer girlfriend for so long and they haven't gotten married, and he's been married before and he's been divorced, all of that kind of like, if you look at that from the outside, you're kind of like saying like, he obviously has something with marriage.
Sure.
And so he takes this, he probably read the book or whatever, had a treatment that he read, and he was like, I kind of agree with how, I can kind of see how these two characters would be in this situation, and I can see how it would actually perpetuate itself in real life, and I can see this, this situation happening. And he wanted to explore that, how a marriage can start off seemingly perfect and then end up so perverted that it's not even, I mean, it's perverse. I mean, it's,
Yeah, but what strikes me about that is what's new about that? Have we not seen that before? Have people not explored that?
usually, especially nowadays, there's not as much of a stigma with getting divorced. So why would somebody get to this point, I guess?
Well, I just don't understand what it was about this story that he wanted to make this story. It wasn't clear for me what he was trying to say. And was it an indictment of marriage? Was it an indictment of the media? Was it an indictment of a person knowing another person? Because do they really know each other? And then you have that thing where she has this past. And so was she just like that? Or did she become like that? I was perplexed. I went home thinking about it, but not like that. Normally that's a high compliment for me that I can't get out of my head. But I was trying to put it into places. And then I kept saying, this is a David Fincher film, which I think it's great that you can't really tell that. But at the same time, if this film, I was hoping, I almost called for some of the things that he traditionally does. You know, those long sweeping shots he does in Panic Room, those strange kind of juddy across the floor in Fight Club type of things that he does. In Seven, that long chase scene that he has and the way he shoots that. There could have been nothing said Fincher. Not, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo kind of broke up that pattern too, but it's almost like he resisted that on purpose, and I think to a fault, because I don't think he made it clear. We've often talked about the fact that things are too spoon-fed in America and in America's cinema. You know, this is the good person, this is the bad person, this is the conflict, this is how they resolve it. Don't they live happily ever after? It's not necessarily, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that sometimes if you don't give the obvious to the audience and let them figure it out, it becomes more interesting. For this one, it's so disjointed for me in a storytelling way that I was like, okay, am I supposed to hate her? Am I supposed to hate him? Am I supposed to be interested in that? It just didn't gel for me.
Well, okay.
Do you not understand what I'm saying?
I do understand what you're saying, but see, if you look at the movie like three movies, so the first movie would be, or not movies in the like 3-act structure, but like so three specific segments, and they're not all of the same length. So the first segment would be Ben Affleck finds out his wife is gone, and we as the audience are trying to determine, just like the detective who was played brilliantly. And you know what
is her name?
Her name is.
And where have we seen her before?
Okay, Friday Night Lights. Have you seen that show?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so that's her name's Kim Dickens, and she played Matt Saracen's mother. So she was like an estranged mother of this kid who
on Friday Night
Lights, the TV show.
Right.
He becomes the starting quarterback as I think as a freshman, or maybe it's a sophomore. Anyway, but he becomes the starting quarterback of this football team, and his dad ends up getting killed in Iraq, I believe. And then his mom is kind of like, you know, estranged. And then like a few seasons in, I think she kind of comes into the picture, and she's a very complex character in that. And she played that character very well in Friday Night Lights. So when I saw in the trailer that she was in this, I was like, okay, this is great.
She is.
And then Patrick Fugit too.
Yeah, he's very good too.
From Almost Famous.
Right.
So
grown up.
Yeah, all grown up. So anyway, I guess she was in The Blind Side. I haven't seen it.
Who is she in The Blind Side?
She
with Sandra Bullock.
Yeah,
who is she in The Blind
is
Side?
Mrs. Boswell. That's all I know.
I recognize her, but yeah, she pops when she's on screen.
Yeah.
There's something about it's that intangible thing that we were talking about with Best Supporting Actress, and it's a shame she doesn't have some form of dramatic scene, because she's borderline Oscar nomination, because she's a standout in this film for me. I will forever know her name because of this movie.
Yeah.
So you were making a point about
So anyway, what I was saying is
the
that
segments of the movie.
Yeah, three kind of segments. And so the first segment is we're in the same boat as the detective, and I like that he kept that. I like that David Fincher kept that, and assuming that Gillian Flynn in her book kept that. Where, I mean, I don't know how the book is structured narratively, but I do know that we're definitely trying to figure out, you know, where Ben Affleck is in all this. But then the second section is basically the Rosamund Pike, Amy Dunn is her character's name, her explanation of how she is trying to fool everybody into thinking that she was killed by her husband. And then that section ends and she becomes an active character in the movie. Because before this, it's only been in flashes
flashbacks.
of, flashbacks.
Yeah, you don't
very
know
short,
she's alive.
and it's very short pieces too.
You don't know what happened to her
at the very beginning, and so you kind of get this like idealized version of her,
right?
And then you see this whole explanation, which I don't know how long it was, 20 minutes, 15 minutes. Her voiceover explanation of how it all
I would say about
happened,
20, 30
but
minutes.
It seemed like it was longer than it probably was, but I don't know. I mean, I felt like I needed it, and I felt like it gave me enough information. Also, this whole time, you see her change from, like there was obviously a conscious determination on Fincher and the makeup person and hopefully Rosamund Pike to basically look as homely as possible for her, who she's beautiful.
Yeah,
and
stunning.
They just, I don't know what they did, made her bloaty or something. I don't know, but she definitely
dyed her hair, and then she gave her. And it's strange, she does look completely different. I wouldn't have recognized her.
She does, and the key scene in that, or the key piece in this section, is when she takes a hammer and hits herself in the face with the hammer. That right there flips a switch, and you say, okay, not only is she committed to like prepare herself for all of this stuff, and to do what she did. I mean, even like her like draining her blood so that she could pour it into I mean, that's pretty extreme, but you kind of look at that and you're like, well, I mean, okay, fine. She poked herself and donated some blood to the cause of making people think that she is
one way to
been
put
killed. But once she hits herself in the face with that hammer, you say, okay, there is something seriously off with this character.
Okay, and she did this because for her storyline in the center of the movie, for the people she meets from that point on to believe she's an abused woman, and she's leaving. She doesn't. It has no association with her with Ben Affleck. So she'll go to any.
Would she be on her own in the middle of Missouri with at this place?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So she goes to extreme measures, and then he puts a huge period on the fact that it's a long sentence with the 20-minute thing about what she's chosen to do and how she's setting up Ben Affleck and all that other stuff, and then it ends with her smashing herself in the face. So it's a huge period, punctuation mark on the fact that this woman will go to these measures to do what she does. Yeah. I'm with you up to this point.
So then we've got a third section,
right?
And the third section is
how
the situation plays out,
right,
with both of these characters who have now been established in this structure, and how they interact or don't interact or whatever. I mean, they're ultimately interacting through the media, which is something you brought up earlier, and that's the other statement I think that Fincher is making. So he's making a statement on the institution of marriage in the United States specifically, I think, and he's making and also love, I think, because it really messes with it. Really, but I think I don't know if it's like his initial like cynicism about love and marriage and the whole list of emotions that people go through in relationships, or if it's him specifically saying you could boil it down to, this is a crazy lady, and that could be the end of the discussion too. I don't know, but I would much rather think that he has another ulterior motive with the way that he's got this set up, instead of like, we're just I'm gonna just make a movie about a crazy person. So
right, no,
and so assuming all that, we've also got the media and how the media could enhance her psychosis,
right,
for lack of a better word, and how the media can facilitate what she's doing. She's also been in the media, and there's the next big question is, why did they add in the Amazing Amy storyline and her parents?
There's a question mark for every single thing that you just mentioned for me, because if it is an exploration about love and how when you first meet somebody you're head over heels and then it starts to wane, and then you have to she even says that in her diary, that everybody told us that marriage was going to be work. Okay, we know this, we've heard this 1,000 times before. Until you get married, you probably don't really realize it. I'm not married, you are. So okay, we've heard these storylines before. What made that interesting to watch? For me at this point in this conversation, nothing actually.
Okay.
And far be it from me to criticize David Fincher, but it was not clear what he was doing for me in this film. And it starts right there, because if it was an indictment of love and how we romanticize love, then that's fine. But then she becomes the person that she has the backstory with the guy that she's falsely accused of raping her. Mm-hmm. She has the backstory with Neil Patrick Harris, who stalked her. If that is what really happened, mm-hmm. you don't know. So what is it an indictment of? And I use that word very clearly. And if it was an indictment of the media or love or how to take an insane person and make them seem sane in a world, then why it was so out of focus with all of those issues that it never came together for me? Because let's take the media as the issue. Mm-hmm. We've seen that before, where you have the Nancy Grace character, who I can't watch that person. No, for me, it's not my thing.
You mean in real life?
Yes, in real life. And there's a character in the movie that
played by Missy Pyle.
Yes, who exaggerates it a little bit, but it's for purpose, because that's how that person comes across in real life. The Nancy Grace person in real life comes across exaggerated to me. I can't spend 5 minutes really listening to it, but I'm not interested in those kind of sensational stories. America obviously is. Mm-hmm. So is it a statement about how, like Natural Born Killers was a statement about how we can take these people and put them on pedestals and make them huge media stars, but they're cold-blooded killers, violent cold-blooded killers. So it would have been interesting to me that if, what is the Ben Affleck's wife's real name?
Oh, Rosamund Pike.
Right.
Is the actress.
Rosamund Pike.
Yeah,
right.
She's British.
Yeah. That's a beautiful name. It would have been interesting to me if she had already planned that out, if she knew the media would pick up on this and she manipulated the media to work for her, but that's not there. So what are we supposed to be focused on? Are we supposed to be focused on the media? Are we supposed to be focused on love? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, well, it's unclear for me.
Well, I think she did know the media was going to have a part, because do you remember the calendar that she had with the Post-it notes on it?
Yeah.
There were multiple outs, is what in I listen to a lot of comedy podcasts, and so comedians have what they call multiple outs, and so do magicians, by the way. My wife and I have been watching this show, Penn and Teller's Fool Us.
Yeah.
And it's basically, these magicians trying to fool Penn and Teller, and if they don't, then they get to go to, or if they do fool Penn and Teller, they get to go to Las Vegas and all this stuff. But anyway, there's in card tricks, like if you want to do a card trick and have somebody pick a particular card, you have what's called multiple outs. And same thing in comedy, like you have the ability to kind of divert the narrative outcome, or divert the outcome to do what you want it to do. Like there's 5 different possibilities for how this will happen. And so if I don't have an answer for all 5, then I could be in a situation where for a magician, I'm in front of an audience and I don't know what to do next. So they have to know what all possibilities are and have a plan for each of those possibilities.
And you're saying that she had on that calendar, okay. Don't you think though there was so many balls being juggled in the air that even that it was there, but it wasn't focused on. So I almost forgot about it until you just mentioned it.
I think David Fincher,
on purpose?
Yeah, I think David Fincher, he's like, you're coming into this movie, you need to be on point. You need to be alert. I'm not saying you weren't alert.
No, I understand what you're saying.
That, like, so
but whose responsibility is it for the story to be told correctly, or to be told? That sounds pompous. To be told so you. The reason why David Fincher took on this project should have on some level come across to us as an audience member, okay? And you and I are film lovers, so we are in tune to things maybe a little bit crisper than some people. Maybe not, maybe not as great as some. So we are in tuned to what's going on in the story, and we're ready for that. We're ready for that to be presented to us. Mm-hmm. It just did not come clear to me what he wanted me to understand from his story. Mm-hmm. I know what you're saying. Those balls being
it keeps you like you're like especially if I'm watching a David Fincher movie, or even like a Christopher Nolan movie, a movie that where like somebody's spent extreme amounts of time poring over every detail, then they've spent the time to do that. The least I can do is like focus in and spend the time as much of my mental energy taking in everything that's on the screen and analyzing it all. And then when I go back again, of course there's stuff that I missed, and I'll be able to get more out of it the next time. And that's why I love those movies. There's other movies, you watch the movie and it was fun and you're done and you move on and I never want to see it again. But his movies consistently do that for me.
And this did this for you.
And this did that because I know I missed stuff.
Well, yeah,
But-
but I'll give you an example through his movies. I understand that human nature can be violent through Fight Club. I'm putting just one little title on that,
Yeah.
okay? I understand that our need to be social can overcome our need to be intimate. That's what I got from Social Network, okay? Panic Room. Don't fool yourself. You're never safe in this world. You don't know what's going to happen. And I'm shortening it. There's 1,000 different other themes in these
But
movies.
you're able to boil it down.
Yes, right. I cannot get that for this film. I cannot put my thoughts about this together, and I don't know. I
So
mean,
what about and one of the things I have on
am
here,
I making sense about
No,
that though?
You are.
Okay.
And one of the, this will steer us, I think, in a different direction, but will be beneficial. One of the things I have on here is, are most best-selling books like this book and Girl with the Dragon Tattoo? I don't read a lot of like fiction books. I just don't. I don't read a lot of books, period. But when I do read a book, it's usually, a nonfiction type book. After seeing Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and trying to read it, I could not get through it because it was. I don't. Have you ever read it?
No,
Okay.
but I'm
The
glad you're
first-
bringing this
The
up.
first 50 pages are all about this guy's magazine and like I
Right,
don't know,
we've talked about this
taxes and
before.
stuff. I don't know. It was very. I couldn't get into it. And then this book too. They both have salacious things to them. I mean, very graphic sex and graphic violence right there. And so
Fincher.
yeah, well, but look at okay. So would you say that like Fight Club has graphic sex in it? I think that it was done in an artful way that wasn't necessarily. I mean, it was 3D camera type stuff, but it wasn't in the same way. It wasn't as well. It wasn't raw like it is in this movie.
I would say it was on par for the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is like the difference between 1999 and 2014, as far as like salacious sex scenes, I think it's a pretty big gap.
Okay.
If you saw what was in this movie, which I mean, anyway, if it wasn't that extreme, I don't think, but still, I just think that things have changed as far as that's concerned, and in some ways, I have to respect David Fincher for that because it seems like he treats sex and violence similarly in the way that like it seems like a lot of people are, especially like if you look at TV, people are completely fine with extreme violence on television,
Right.
But when it comes to sex, it's like
Oh yeah, no,
nothing.
Don't show that.
And so it's like either nothing, period, or everything's fair game. Pick one. And
Sure.
David Fincher's picked one, and he picked everything's fair game. But anyway, so I was just wondering if these books that are so popular, that aren't young adult titles, I guess, are they this like visceral and like? I mean, there were some extreme scenes in this. I mean, extremely gory scenes. I mean, they weren't gory like horror movie gory. They were just like, it was kind of an affront to like, this is happening,
Right,
you
yeah.
know, when Neil Patrick Harris gets
Yeah.
his throat slit and just, I mean, it's all out there. It's all happening. And so, is that something that's like normal for fiction books? I don't know, but I mean,
Well, 50 Shades of Grey was huge.
okay,
Well, let me.
not a lot of blood in that one, I'm guessing.
Right. No, I don't know. There's a lot of tying up, so I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
so.
true.
Who knows? But I think that the violence and the sex in what Fincher chooses to do is not just about that. It's about something else. It's telling you something else because the
But it's a tool in
opening
his
sex
kit,
scene is
though.
pretty. I mean, it's
Yeah.
pretty intense when you're like, well, I'm not really supposed to be watching two people do this.
Well,
like,
and it's not shown on TV very often, or on movies very often.
yeah,
I mean.
no, not at all. But I think he's making a point that they were that intimate and that this was something that you needed to understand about them as a couple. And I have I love the fact that you brought up the books because after I saw Social Network, I had to read the book. After I saw Fight Club, I had to read the book. So I didn't read Girl with the Dragon Tattoo because I'll be honest with you, I didn't know it was a book. I probably will end up trying to read it now. There is nothing about this film that's making me want to read the book now.
I'd have to agree with that.
Yeah, so I'm there are things that I really really enjoyed about it, and I would have to say yes, Fight Club is as violent, it is as graphic, it is as nuanced. I mean, they go,
But the narrative structure of that book and the way that it's written
similar. It's
is
similar.
It gets you into it.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't know if this is necessarily.
Well, like I said before, people were saying in some of these reviews that they even, like, how you have the critic reviews and then you have the public's review. A lot of people who've read the book said that they were glad they made this movie because they really loved the movie compared to the book. And that's unusual. That's very unusual. People are really committed to loving books, and that was different in the movie than it was in the book.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like it. Maybe I'll see it again and it will come together for me because Rosamund Pike, is that I believe she's in line for an Oscar nomination.
Really?
Yeah, I loved her. I thought she was great. There is no way that was really hard to pull off. You obviously don't agree.
Well, and I have
I'm not saying she's going to get an Oscar
but-
nomination. I'm saying that, did you believe she was as intensely altered as she becomes? Did you see that coming at all?
No, I
Right,
didn't. Not
none.
initially, no.
Did you see it when they first met? When they met, even when she gets mad at him, do you have any idea she's going to do what she does with the hammer? Do you think
No.
that she's going to do what she does? Oh, here's where I'll convince you that her performance is brilliant, okay? Remember when she goes to Neil Patrick Harris's house?
Yes.
His cabin
His
in the
lake house.
woods. Whatever. I mean, it's the biggest cabin in the woods I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, I was more interested in what he did for a living than
Which
what
they never explained.
That's a major point for me
Yike.
too. We got to come back to that.
Ah.
We're going to come back to Ben Affleck, and we're going to come back to supporting characters because I think this is I will openly admit I think this is the flaw of the film.
Okay.
But back to her really quick. When she sees the cameras, when she sees all the cameras, she's plotting right then and there what happens to him later on.
It's the multiple outs, though.
I thought, yes, it is. But I thought she was looking at the cameras because she was worried about somebody seeing her there.
Me
But
too,
she's not.
initially,
But
yeah.
she wasn't. She was plotting that from. See, that's brilliant because what reads on that actress's mind or on her face is not what she's thinking in her mind. That's hard to pull off because the camera's right there. All you have is your facial expressions. So to be thinking one thing and acting another facially, I don't know many people who could do it. If this does not pull her close to an Oscar nomination, Golden Globe possibly, some critic awards probably, it will put her. She's now going to be a very sought after actress.
So would you say that like Rooney Mara in her performance, Rooney Mara in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and her performance would be an equivalent?
No,
type
for me,
thing?
because I had no idea she was going to get the Oscar nomination.
Okay, so that was a shock
No,
to you.
I was
Okay.
shocked. I was glad,
Uh-huh.
but I actually thought Naomi Rapace.
Rapace?
Is that how you say
Oh, no,
her?
I think it's Rapace.
Rapace, right.
I think it is.
I think she deserved the Oscar nomination for the first Girl with the Dragon Tattoo over Rooney Mara. But
Well,
I was
I would agree
I was
with you
fine with
too.
her.
Yeah.
I was fine with her getting the Oscar nomination. I'm glad because now she's working and it sheds light on somebody's career, like Keira Knightley and
Atonement.
no, it was a Jane Austen thing. Thing. Yeah, that
You
was-
know,
yeah, one of them Jane Austen things.
Yeah, she's okay, I guess.
Inherit the Wind, but that's not Jane Austen. People are going to be so mad I said that. I have so many
it Pride
friends.
and Prejudice?
Yes, but I have so many friends who are going to be mad that I just said it. Sorry. I take it all back. Jane Austen rules. But it sheds light on the actress, which I'm fine with that. And I think this performance is going to do that for her. So, but you weren't as taken by her?
Okay, so I have this weird relationship with her because, I mean, it's not a personal one, obviously, but it's...
I would step back a few paces if you knew her. I would be like, "Ooh, dude, she's got something in her to pull that off."
Well, yeah, no, but she was in... I'm a big Bond fan, James Bond fan.
Yeah.
She was in Die Another Day, which was the last Pierce Brosnan movie. And
I
she
didn't
was
see it.
very, like, vacuous in that movie. And so I'm still trying to, like, kick that I've never seen her in anything else.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to kick that initial.
Well, that's a sign right there.
feeling.
That says something about her performance if uh, it didn't wipe that away for you. So that does sound.
But
But don't you think moment to moment, like, did you have any clue it was going where it was going with her when
especially
she?
from the beginning, once we get to the reveal of her actually, setting all this up. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that right there should have been enough for me, but it's just a weird, I don't know. And maybe that's also, I kind of have this weird, like, nobody gives David Fincher enough respect in the industry type of a thing where he's never gotten a, he did get nominated for Social Network, didn't he?
And Benjamin Button.
And Benjamin Button, which I always forget.
Yeah.
But not to say I don't
Nominated
like
for
Benjamin
Best Actor or Best Director, and he was slotted to win. And then all of a sudden, Tom Hooper came in with the King's Speech, and that it was almost Fincher. I disagree with that.
At the same time, like, look at, I mean, did I'm trying to think.
Oh, people flipped over Fight Club. They hated that.
Yeah, and then I mean, I felt like Michael Douglas did a great job in The Game. I
Right.
don't know if it was necessarily Oscar worthy, but if you look at what Michael Douglas did in that movie, I mean, he had a lot to do, and he had to play a whole range of emotions, and I felt like he did it perfectly.
And that's why people mention that movie to this day, because that did have an impact on people. But what is it about Fincher you don't think?
It just seems like, it seems like when you kind of agree to do a Fincher movie, that they're kind of like saying, well, I mean, you might not get any awards, but it's hopefully going to be fun.
Brad Pitt was nominated for Benjamin Button. Jesse Eisenberg has his first nomination because of Fincher. Runa Mari has her first. I mean, he's fine.
Yeah.
He's fine when it comes to the Oscar. He probably could care less. Okay, so let's get back to the
Sorry,
supporting.
my bad.
It's all good. It's all good. I stick up for him, man. If you don't think you said something about Panic Room once where I was like, people diss on Panic Room. I'm like, that's ridiculous.
Well,
they're wrong.
Well, it's
saying a lot of
they're
blatant
saying that,
things
well,
tonight.
and they're saying that, that it's basically a B movie, but ultimately, I mean, the subject matter is B movie subject matter,
Handled extremely well.
Exactly, he elevated.
I cannot. Oh, here's another interesting thing for when, we never do thumbs up or 5 stars or anything like that, but we talk about things and you can tell by what we say whether or not we really love something or not, and whether or not we want to see it again is one of our compliments. If we want to turn around. I could not wait to see Social Network again. I could not wait to see Fight Club again. I actually waited in line and saw it again. Wow. I saw Panic Room just recently, borrowed from you, and I watched all the DVD extras because I'm fascinated with the worlds that he created. I almost feel like I didn't see this film.
Okay.
It's not calling me back.
Do you think it's schlock? Like, do you think it's just like you would have seen it late at night on a TV, on a...
No, because I know a lot more went into that than... And maybe it's going to hit me one day. And maybe it's just, sometimes we've talked about everything in its time. We can't read every book. We can't watch every movie. We'll see them in the time we're supposed to see them. I'd never seen Diving Bell and the Butterfly. I resisted. We have a whole lot to talk about when it comes to that. There was reasons why, and I was right. But maybe it just wasn't, maybe I do need to see it again to have it gel for me. And I can go, oh, okay, this, oh, okay, that. So let's get to the supporting characters really quick. The one thing that I would say is, first of all, Tyler Perry is probably the best thing in the movie for me.
He's good.
He really is good.
He's natural.
And we were talking about that. We were talking about the fact of why we thought he had gotten cast.
Mm-hmm.
And we were saying a bunch of different reasons. I think it was because it was an interesting part, and it probably was the least likely choice. But he is moment by moment my favorite thing in the film.
Did you hear the story about how he got cast?
No.
Okay, so I read this on an article. It was about a couple weeks ago. But basically, he didn't even know. Like, I guess he has an agent like everybody else. I mean, although he's obviously busy making his own movies and his own shows and everything, but he still has an agent that he's, I guess, given some sort of directive and said, like, if these types of movies come up or if a movie comes up, whatever, you put my hat in the ring, or if somebody comes and is interested, then just, like, sign me up, let me know, and then tell me where to be. So he did that, and his agent basically just signed him up for this David Fincher movie, and he said that he probably would have never sought out a role in a David Fincher movie, but the casting director, thought he would be interesting. And I think it's probably one of those things where like, I'm sure the casting director probably had like a long list of people for this, and wherever he landed, maybe he was at the top, and it was like, okay, well, we'll ask Tyler Perry, but I'm sure he's too busy and I'm sure he doesn't want to do it, but then we'll move on to the next ones. Well, he said yes, or at least his agent said yes. And so once he initially said, was told, oh yeah, this is the movie, it's shooting at this time and it's David Fincher and here's the book or here's the script, and then move on. He was like, well, I mean, all right, that sounds great, and I'll be more than willing to do it, I guess. But he said he wouldn't have necessarily sought out this particular role, but I felt like he did.
Well,
did
what's
great
interesting to me is the fact that he's probably, if you had a list of 10 people and he was on some other list, I would have never expected to see him on the list. I would have been like,
Exactly.
he's the least likely choice, so let's cast him.
Mm-hmm.
The most unobvious choice sometimes, I think, is the best choice. And I think with that said, we've talked about the other supporting characters. The thing is that there's no backstory to any of them. You know nothing about them.
What do you need to know about Tyler
Okay, I
Perry's
knew you were
character?
going to ask me that. I knew it. Well, the reason why he is the lawyer that he is, he's some line that says, when I was a kid, I was walking down the street and somebody faulted somebody and I thought that was unjust. So this is why I've taken this up. Something, because it's all there in all the Fincher films.
But
all of it.
But I think the line that does that tells you his directives or his motivation is, my retainer's $100,000. That's it. He's out. That's it. I mean, he's like, my retainer's $100,000. And so that tells you right there, number one, he's not saying I'll do it for free. I mean, he ultimately says, we'll work it out or whatever. But
Yeah.
he says my retainer's $100,000. That's somebody who's confident in what he does, understands the demand on him, and it also, shows that he's not afraid to do the dirty thing of talking money.
Okay, fair enough.
For someone's life.
Okay,
he's like, you're gonna be,
Yeah.
on death row unless my retainer's $100,000.
Right. Okay, so the lead detective,
Mm-hmm.
what do we know about her? That she has an ex, and she mentions the ex all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that,
That once again, that's the whole marriage thing.
right, but what do we know about her? You need a little bit from me. You need a little character development, even in the.
So you want to see her at home?
No.
Or something? What do you?
No, I'm saying that there are ways to describe things. We've often talked about how in one line a writer can let you know how your character is supposed to be. The direction a director will go is based on one line in the play. He can develop the whole theme of the play around one line. Just one or two lines will let us know why she's so motivated in what she does and why she left her ex, and if that's influenced her to do things a certain way. The movie's 2.5 hours long. Why not? So for me, it lacks that. Okay.
And maybe David. I'm just gonna defend David Fincher
That's
again.
okay. It's
but
okay.
maybe he has a cynicism about him that won't allow that.
But he allows it in every other film. Exactly. And I thought about this on the way over here. Jesse Eisenberg's best friend. That he's working because he has a loan for college. He doesn't come from money. That he's worked for everything. His parents are immigrants. All that stuff. Mm-hmm. His best friend in the movie who says,
Andrew Garfield?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. You know about the twins. They're Ivy League. They're trust fund babies. Tons about those people. All the way through Panic Room, the exact reason why Jared Leto is there. The exact reason why Forrest Whitaker is there. He leaves a little bit of Dwight Yoakam's development ambiguous because that's interesting, and his name is what was his name? Raul, right? Which doesn't make any sense at all. No. That the little girl is overly mothered. Things about Jodie Foster, and these things.
Okay, I
You
see what
see
you're saying.
these things. Things about Marla in Fight Club that you don't necessarily need to know. Things about Meatloaf in Fight Club.
But okay.
His name was
so,
Robert Paulson.
But you don't talk about Zodiac very much, and I don't think you've seen Zodiac but once.
Twice.
You saw it twice.
Yes.
All right. And Zodiac is a good. It's not, I don't know if it's. I mean, in some ways, it's a good comparison to Gone Girl because you've got a lot of characters, and some characters aren't on screen for very long.
Right.
I mean, like the Chloe Sevigny character.
Yeah.
I mean, she's only in like 3 scenes, but and it's not something that's, you know, laid out there. I don't even know is she a nurse or something? I don't even know what she is really, but it's not necessarily pertinent to the story. But I think he does a good job with all of those characters, and that's not the first place that I go looking at like character motivations in a movie, and so maybe I'm not as sensitive as you are to them. And
Well,
so,
I think it adds to the reason why the director has decided to make this movie, because that's sort of the catalyst to this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Why did he want to make this movie? And the fact that you can't remember what she did in the film is a tad bit of an issue, because how many times you've seen that movie?
a lot.
Okay.
Probably 4 or 5 times.
So if maybe she had a little line that says the reason why she did whatever she did was because her dog died or
But
something.
it doesn't take away from the character to me. Like I know, I
But
understand.
there is no character there. You don't even remember what her name is.
No, but it's
or what she did.
Yeah, but it's a you see the scenes where, oh, he's late to their first date, and then there's another scene where he comes home crazy late because he's been working on the Zodiac case. And I mean, you see his interactions with his kid as a young kid and with her, and how that's affecting, how his work on the Zodiac case is affecting his home life. And it gets the job done. I guess,
I
for
got what
lack
you're
of
saying.
a better word, but anyway.
But do you
so
understand what I'm trying to
I
say?
do. I
think it would have. It's out of focus for me. This film, I want to say cloudy. That was the first adjective I thought of. It was cloudy. The storylines are like a bunch of balloons, and all the strings are the storylines, and they're going up into the air, and the balloons are up in the clouds. I know this is a weird analogy. I'm just coming up with it right now. And you can't really see the color of the balloons, but you know they're balloons. So it's not clear for me, this film. So that said, I've said it 4 times now. I love Fincher, by the way. I cannot say that enough. I don't want it to sound like beating up on Fincher.
Yeah.
But let's get back to Ben Affleck now, because your
Yeah.
question was
My question initially was, why is Ben Affleck in this movie?
meaning as an actor.
No,
or-
so I guess I'm looking at it from 2 different ways. Like, why is it they felt like Ben Affleck needed to be in this movie? Why is it that David Fincher and the casting director and the producers and the writer possibly, why did they want him to be in this movie? And does he add anything or subtract anything from this movie?
Do you have an answer to those questions?
No.
Okay, but see, that to me is an issue, because if it was that he's Ben Affleck, the new actor who's going to be Batman, of course, that's probably didn't happen at the time when
No.
but he's a mainstream, huge named actor. So there had to be a reason why. There's nothing in the film that emphasizes why they chose to use this guy. You know, what was it about? Did he think that he could pull something out of Ben Affleck that was going to be more interesting than we've seen from Ben Affleck? And I like Ben Affleck. I'm not going to diss on him. I hate when people are messing with him about Batman. Let him be Batman. Who cares? I like his work. Good Will Hunting. You know, there's tons of stuff that Hollywoodland. Have you ever seen that?
I started. That's what he plays, George Reeves?
Yes, he's
Okay.
very good in that.
Okay.
It's probably his best performance to date.
Really?
Yeah. You should check it out again, because his performance is definitely one of those ones that people talked about Oscar nominations. And once again, the Oscar nomination is just shedding light on somebody's performance. It's not necessarily an end-all be-all precedence that's set for me. It's not like, oh, the performance is no good because it didn't get an Oscar nomination. It's not that. It sheds light on some people. Strangely enough, his brother Casey Affleck has an Oscar nomination for acting, and he does not.
And I think Casey Affleck shows more of his range on screen
hands down.
than Ben Affleck.
And I think whatever the reason, and this is not a diss on Ben Affleck, but whatever the reason they chose to cast him, they chose wrong. Because for me,
Sure.
they chose wrong. The performance is so not nuanced, and I think that's purposeful. But I kept saying to myself, what is it about? It's not what he did. He did everything fine. He's okay. But I kept thinking, what if it was Bradley Cooper? What if it was Christian Bale? What if it was Casey Affleck? Would they have brought a nuance to it that would have made the reason why I'm watching this movie relevant? Because he's not one note, but
Well, okay. And so the next question I have is he doing exactly what the script asked of him?
or is he only doing what he was capable
Or is he
of
doing
doing?
what he's capable of doing? And there's no way for me to really know
What's your instinct?
know that. So I would hope that he's doing exactly what the script asks of him, which is less than, like, he's kind of a dumbed down character, especially compared to the Rosamund Pike character, compared to the detective, compared to the lawyer. I mean, he did have, I guess, the main scene of him being interviewed by the one-on-one interview with the news lady, where he kind of goes through this very clandestine communications with his wife, who he knows is alive, but nobody else knows is alive. All that stuff. That was done well, I think. You know, the clips that we saw.
Yeah.
But other than that, it seems like the very first scene of the movie, he walks into the bar, sits down, and he's talking with his sister, who is infinitely more interesting than he is.
Yes,
and
but still know nothing about her.
Yeah, you kind of do. Well, you know that they're brother and sister. You know that they're both very cynical, and you know that she hates his wife. You know that there's a dynamic that's being set up between them,
Yeah.
and then an implied dynamic between him and his wife. Okay.
Okay.
So that's what that scene's about. It's like, I'm commiserating with you about my wife who I don't like. Okay, good, we got that. But I don't feel like there's no dynamics to him, really. I mean, even when there's a scene where he takes a whiskey glass and smashes it on the floor, and like that just seemed out of nowhere. And
Same with the smashing up against the wall at the end too. Yeah, where did that come from?
And then there's those three scenes, basically. Him smashing the glass, him throwing her down like against the stairs, which could have been made up. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Was that made up in her diary, or?
My thought was that it actually happened and she just capitalized on it.
Okay. So then let's say that scene is real. So it's first of all him throwing her against the stairs and her falling, and then secondly him smashing the glass, right in that middle section of the movie, and then ultimately at the end with him shoving his wife up against the bathroom wall. And those three did seem to come out of nowhere, especially considering his ability to be even keel. You would think that somebody who, kind of flies off the handle that quickly would, because he's obviously not thinking of what he's doing at those times.
Right.
So imagine sitting in the, being interviewed by or being, interrogated by the police, ultimately them implying that you did something to hurt or possibly kill your wife. Wouldn't you go off the handle there too?
Or have some form of reaction.
Yeah.
I turned to you in the movie theater halfway through it and I was like, it's bothering me. He hasn't asked for a lawyer. I don't understand why people don't do that, first of all. Do they not ever
watch?
watch?
Implied guilt.
Right. Well, who cares? It's legal. That's the first thing they tell you on all those Dateline shows. Who cares what the implied guilt is? Get a lawyer. And he seems an intelligent person, and he seems...
But hold on a second now. He's from the Midwest. He has like a kind of a... I mean, I feel like I have this too. Like there's like a built-in kind of like a trust and I just, I don't see why anybody would
He lived in New York for like 15 years, though.
He did, but
that will tan you for the rest of your life.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it will.
Never even been there, so
you got to go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think what we're discussing right now, the lack of understanding where he was coming from as a character, pretty much colors the whole film for me.
Okay.
Not because of him, not because of him per se.
But do we know?
Just everything about this movie seemed... The phrase, we thought we had the answers, it was the questions we had. We thought that we had the answers, it was the questions we had wrong. Am I asking the wrong questions about this film? I don't know, because I can't cling on to anything. So, and I think his performance is at the top of this iceberg.
Okay.
If that's the analogy you want to go with, all the things we've discussed are now building up to his performance. And I'm not saying that it's his performance that makes or break the film for me, but all of this questioning of where he comes from, what's the motivation, what's he doing. It always sounds funny when you say, what's the motivation? What's my motivation? But it's true though, because as an audience member, you're being fed emotions and you're being fed character development so you can understand the storyline and the narrative and the reason why we're even watching this film to begin with. What is the reason? And I will say this in defense of Ben, I don't think if his performance was any better, the film for me would be any better.
And that's where I point towards the script, I think. So like what like so you're talking about Bradley Cooper, you're talking about
Yes.
Christian Bale, you're talking about these guys you can plug in.
There's
Even a Brad Pitt, you can plug in.
I thought about him too.
And what happens? Like, does he take a middling script and crank it up to 11 and we get this
Ryan
sparkling
Gosling.
performance? Ryan Gosling. That would, I mean, yeah. Do we get this, amazing performance that is what the movie becomes about? Because, I mean, it seems like that's what happens a lot is you get people that come in and they, wring as much as they can out of a character, and then those people are the ones that get the Oscar nominations and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
I think that this is purposeful. I think that they went with the Midwest tone and kind of middle ground and the kind of laid back, because you see him going out, checking his mail in the beginning of the film or taking out his trash. I can't remember which one. And he's just kind of having his day. And, he's frustrated with his wife when he goes into the bar, but you can't tell that as he's walking in. He's looking for somebody to listen to him, which is his sister. And you're right. She's infinitely more interesting than a lot of people in the film. Actually, I think when I came out of the film, I wanted to know more about all those people than I wanted to know about the two leads.
So yeah, okay, but the two leads. I mean, obviously, I felt like Rosamund Pike's performance was was very high, and Ben Affleck's performance was very low.
Agreed.
But to me, it's like with my biases either way, I guess, with my Rosamund Pike, subliminal hating, I guess, I wanted to bring her down and I wanted to try to bring Ben Affleck up, but I don't think I can bring him up. And maybe that's how the writer
I think
dealt
that's
with those
purposeful.
characters.
And maybe this is me being, kind of a fanboy for Ben Affleck, but it seemed purposeful because I have seen him do higher and lower emotions, and I've seen him be more nuanced. Hollywoodland is a prime example. I would quote a couple other films, but people want to laugh at things like Armageddon and stuff like that. But I actually think it's more nuanced in that performance than this one. But maybe David Fincher was allowing you to see this story, almost on a flat line basis to where you can take what you need to take from it and believe what you can believe from it. But in the end, I think he didn't pose the right questions or answer the right questions. One of the two. I can't figure out where I sit with it. I will see it again for the mere fact that I'm confused about it. I'm not sure. This is why I could never really be a professional reviewer, because I have no idea what to tell people whether or not I liked it or not.
You got to come down somewhere.
Well, do you though? I mean, he didn't. He doesn't.
Yeah. But what I'm saying as a professional reviewer, that's what people expect is, okay, how many, thumbs up or whatever.
I need two reviews. This review says this and that review says that. You pick it. Yeah. So, it's Fincher. I had a hard time remembering it was a David Fincher film.
Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't because of how it looks. I mean, I could see, especially nighttime scenes, I could see, I don't know, a second of David Fincher's movies, and I can know that basically,
really?
Oh yeah,
I didn't see it at all.
And it's not. It's more of like the people that he used, like the director of photography that he uses, or cinematographer, what do you want to call him? The DPs that he's used, and the way that they use digital filmmaking. It has a look. It looks kind of smoky, but there's no smoke. Like
in Zodiac.
Yeah, in Zodiac, definitely.
It's perfect
but
there.
In like Blade Runner, where they had to like pump smoke into the. I mean, you don't have to do that anymore. You get to see the nooks and crannies of a room lit with natural light, with one light bulb in the middle or in the corner of the room. You can see everything in that room, and he really takes that and enhances that to the fullest of its ability as far as the image is concerned. And so that's how I can kind of like especially, I mean, perfect example would be the scenes in his dad's house.
Okay.
Where, I mean, you just got like one fluorescent light in the corner, and you see all the stuff around.
You're right. Okay.
And it's an environment that's created, and that right there is kind of like, well, yeah, this is Fincher.
All right. So I have two questions for you. Were you excited when you left the film? Were you like jazzed and pumped up?
I was, and it's funny because what's the first thing I talked about when we were walking out, and we haven't talked about it at all now, is the score.
Right.
And it was Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross, again, third time that he's used them. And it was, I said to you that it was the most like a more, like a classic, not classical, but a classic score where stayed out of the way. It wasn't as overt as, especially as Social Network, which was kind of like a statement piece, I think.
Yeah.
And it was, the Social Network score was so integrated with that movie, it couldn't have been that movie without that score.
Agreed.
And that's why it won
Yeah,
the Academy
absolutely.
Award. It should have. But this feels like, do you know how like there's John Williams scores and there's
Yes.
Jerry
I
Goldsmith
know what you're
scores?
saying.
So
And then the guy who did There Will Be Blood.
yeah, well,
This more
that's
that fit.
Johnny Greenwood.
Yeah, this fits more in that category.
Yeah, but so those John Williams scores, what I'm trying to get at is that the John Williams scores is like, you can know that it's a John Williams score, but it's not a like, I'm totally out of this scene because I'm listening to John Williams music.
Yes.
It's all kind of integrated. I felt like that with this movie. I was like, I'm aware that this is a Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross score, but I'm not ripped out of the narrative. I'm not saying like, wow, this is really great music. I'm saying this is a part of the whole. So and I like that. The only time when I was not ripped out, the only time when I was like, this is crazy, was when Neil Patrick Harris got killed. And do you remember it was
Yeah.
like, wow, but they
Yeah.
had that high frequency, and then
Yeah.
it was kind of like a ripping low frequency
Yeah.
to high frequency, just kind of like
Yeah.
I don't even know how to describe it.
I didn't know whether to close
It's-
my eyes or close my ears.
Yeah.
It was.
And it sounded
was
like-
because of the score.
Yeah, and it sounded like, I don't know if it was like a slowed down heartbeat type thing. It felt like I'm seeing someone die right in front of me.
It
And-
sounded
oh,
like what the act that was being committed
yeah,
was.
or like what was happening in her head
Yeah,
while
exactly.
it was going
Yeah,
on.
exactly.
Oh.
Okay, so my second question, and we might want to end it on this. You are recommending this to people. You got to go see this movie.
Well, no. Like I said at the beginning, it's a very specific movie for a specific person or group of people in a specific situation.
Okay, so
You
if a
can't
person
see it
says,
with your kids, obviously.
yeah, well, no, I'm
but-
saying that if somebody comes up to you and says, "Oh, I love David Fincher," you would say, "Oh, you got to see Gone Girl."
No.
Oh,
I would say you love David Fincher. In the particular situation, you should see Gone Girl if you're ready for it. So I think that, I don't know. I
well,
mean,
if they like Fincher, then they've got to be ready for something.
yeah, but like at the same time, like if somebody's like has marital problems, I wouldn't say, oh, you got to see Gone Girl, because it doesn't seem like that. They would think
They
like,
might feel better about their life after it.
maybe just the whole like reality TV, man, at least I'm not as bad as those guys.
Yeah, right.
Maybe that would be the case, but I
Now I'm talking about as a film goer
Okay,
and
so-
a film lover.
Yeah.
If I have not seen Gone Girl, and I admire Fincher like you do, would you say to me, "Oh, you got to see Gone Girl"?
I would, yeah.
Okay.
I would, because I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to ride the ride.
Okay.
And especially since you've got these compartmentalized sections in the movie where it is a mystery, but he doesn't rely on the mystery. It's not a Scooby-Doo episode where at the very end they pull off the old man Withers, mask, and it's old man
Oh, yeah,
Withers.
right.
It's not that. It's distinctly okay, we're going to give you a little mystery for a while, but then like this is the crazy part in the
Right.
middle. And then what happens with Mrs. Crazy and Doogie Howser,
Well, I think we've talked. You did not just say that.
I said
That's
it.
so funny. I think he's risen above all that though, because I think he's
the good thing is
fantastic in it
he-
too.
And Neil Patrick Harris never had a glint in his eye, because he's a funny guy.
Yeah.
And
No,
I've heard him
he's
on a
kind of scary, creepy in this one.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
is. But I've heard him on a couple podcasts, and I've obviously seen, How I
Yeah.
Met Your Mother and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
wink, wink.
He's-
Yeah.
he's a very funny guy. And the whole time I was kind of I was trying to see how much he could hold it in
Yeah,
or
and he
whatever.
does.
And he does.
Well, we've talked about this before, that we've listened to albums that might have been revered in their time, but I didn't necessarily get it at the time. So I've tried to re-listen to them. OK Computer, Radiohead.
Yeah.
I try to listen to that once a year because it's not my favorite Radiohead. I like Kid A and Pablo Honey better. That's going to make a lot of people mad too. But so I try to listen to OK Computer every so often to see if I'm picking up what they were putting out at the time, and maybe this is like that with this film. So I'm going to reserve the right to go see it again and say maybe because I was in a perfectly good mood. I wasn't tired. I wasn't hungry. I wasn't angry. There was nothing influencing me to not particularly like this film. So it might not have been the time for me to see this movie. There's been tons of movies that I've watched years ago, and then I watched them again, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said a bad word about this film. And I don't necessarily think what I've said is bad. It's just it did not gel for me in the end. But I will reserve the right to watch it again and reverse all that.
And at the same, yeah, that's good. And at the same time that Zodiac doesn't call to you,
No, it doesn't.
Benjamin Button doesn't call to me.
That's a
And-
whole
and
nother
it's-
discussion.
Well, but and it's fine. Your initial impulses about Zodiac are not right or wrong, and my initial impulses about Benjamin Button are not right or wrong. But we still have the utmost respect for David Fincher, and similarly, Gone Girl will probably be that type of. I don't want to say that it may be that type of movie for you. Like to me, like Social Network is infinitely watchable. Fight Club is infinitely watchable. Panic Room to me is infinitely watchable.
Agreed.
And Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, no, to me it's not. But it's so emotional and it's so raw.
But if it was on a shelf and I didn't have anything else to watch that night, I would explore that again.
Yeah.
For one reason and one reason only: David Fincher.
Mm-hmm.
This one, right now,
Okay.
as it stands, I might pass it up.
Yeah.
For a second time.
Okay.
But I'm gonna, based on a lot of things that we've talked about,
Mm-hmm.
I will, like I said, reserve the right to watch it again.
I'll buy the DVD or the Blu-ray and
Yeah.
I'll do the whole thing. You know what? The next movie that David Fincher comes out with, I will buy the DVD and I will do the whole thing.
Fair enough.
And so, it's, I don't even know what it is, but
But his work holds up to that, though. It's not
it's
like you're
worth-
just. It's not
he's
like
gonna
you
have
have.
to do something
Yeah.
really bad or
Yeah.
really poor
Yeah.
for me to not.
There's not a stinker in
By-
the bunch
yeah.
so far.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, I think that we've figured it all out. Everything about Gone Girl,
I'm
we've
glad
totally
you think
figured
so.
out. So, next episode, we'll finish up the Old, New, Boring, Blue with talking about the old, boring, and blue movies that we talked about earlier. Did you want to go over the 10 movies you want me to watch real quick?
No, we can talk about it next time.
Okay, we'll do that. Okay, if you want to check us out on the web, the podcast's web address is actorandengineer.com. Facebook.com/actorandengineer is our Facebook page. And on Twitter, we are at actorengineer. So I guess we will see you next week.
Until then.
All right, bye.